All right, my fellow mech warriors, my fellow mech commanders, it's Trailblazer coming at you with some new BattleTech tactics thinking, or tactica as some people like to call it. I want to talk today about a type of mistake that players in poker are prone to make that I think BattleTech players are also prone to make, and where you can up your game by avoiding this type of mistake. The mistake I'm talking about is overreacting to a bad beat. So a bad beat in poker is a situation where you have a great hand, a hand that reasonably, statistically speaking, should win essentially every time you play it, and yet one of your opponents gets even more lucky than you and gets a better hand, and they surprise you by winning. So like in this image, for example, we see a situation where a player loses with four of a kind, which is a hand that should essentially never lose because another player drew a straight flush. Now usually a bad beat is really disastrous because you're going to put a ton of money into the game because you think your hand is a sure winner, and you end up losing anyway. So, and of course there's also the psychological demoralization of being beaten when you thought you had it. So getting a bad beat is really impactful psychologically on a player in poker. Now, BattleTech is a game with a whole lot of luck involved. And so, when you roll the dice, some crazy things can happen in BattleTech. And that leads to a similar phenomenon like the bad beat. Take this example, which I've clipped from the BattleTech forums. A player is talking about a friend of theirs who, after having a lucky ammo hit against a Crusader in the center torso ammo, decided to just dump that ammo every time they play from then on. Statistically speaking, a through armor crit like this that hits your ammo in the first shot that's done to you, it's possible. You'll see it happen, one or two times in your career as a BattleTech player, but it is not an event that's going to happen often enough that you should plan around it. The worst way to respond to a bad beat in poker is to become more cautious in the future when you have a really good hand like this and think, well, I've been beaten with a great hand like this before, so I shouldn't bet too hard when I've got this hand. You can become afraid. You can start to think, oh, I can see it in their eyes. They have a better hand, an even better hand than me. You don't want to start down the road with that kind of thinking, not unless you are the sort of unnaturally perceptive player who can really read people. Instead, you want to continue to bet confidently with a hand that is extremely likely to win. For the same reason, in BattleTech, there are very, very few mechs where you actually want to dump your ammunition, and the Crusader's center torso ammunition is not an example of a case where you should do that. Instead, you want to play confidently and realize that from time to time you will lose a game because you got some really bad luck. Of course, that's true with all sorts of things. It's true with head hits. It's true with some other through armor criticals. Like if you get a through armor critical that hits your gyro, that's going to almost put that mech out of the game unless the pilot is extremely good. So when you are the victim of an unlucky bad beat in BattleTech, when the dice wreck you in a situation where, statistically speaking, you should not have been hurt so badly by a shot, just roll with it the way that a good poker player would. Don't adjust to it. Don't get scared. Just say to yourself, in the future I'll play confidently the same way I was doing, and in the future bad luck isn't likely to happen to me. In the future I'm going to make the same play, and next time I'm going to win. So that's my message to you today. If a bad beat happens to you in BattleTech, if something unlikely happens and you lose because of it, think objectively. How likely is that thing to happen again in the future? And don't exaggerate the probability of it in your mind. That's one of the things in this game that will lead in the long run to more losses than wins.